If you're curious about the most isolated country in the world, look no further than North Korea. Because of its intense surveillance and strict government control, not much is known about it. From forced labor and electric fences to buildings on the brink of collapse. In this video, we'll show you 25 photos that were successfully smuggled out of North Korea. 25. Poor construction. Thinking about how being cut off affects a country, look at North Korea. By choosing to stay isolated from the rest of the world, it's really tough for its people. One of the big problems from this isolation is the lack of basic supplies needed for building things. Despite these problems, the people's resolve is strong. They have to manage with what little they have, which often means building with insufficient materials. The buildings that result from this are not up to standard and could even become dangerous over time. This serious issue is made clear by secret photos that have come out showing buildings in bad shape right in Pyongyang, the capital. If the capital city, which should be the best place in the country, has buildings like this, you can only imagine how bad it might be in less central areas. These leaked images give us a real look into the tough situation caused by North Korea's choice to keep to itself. It's a really serious issue. 24. Dolphinarium. North Korea has built a dolphinarium, trying to show the world that it's a rich and cultured place, with cool attractions just like other countries. They want it to look like a fun spot just for their people to enjoy. But something's off about it. A tourist snapped a photo showing that the only people watching the dolphin show were soldiers. It's kind of weird seeing only military folks there, pretending it's all normal. What about the regular people in North Korea? Are they interested in watching dolphins too? Or can they just not afford to go to such places? This makes you think, who is the North Korean government really trying to fool with this setup? 23. Propaganda computer. To influence what the world thinks about it, there's this tactic North Korea uses, where they set up these fancy tech scenes for tourists. It makes it look like everyone there is super tech savvy. A photographer from Belgium, Eric Laforgue, went deep into the country and took pictures that show what's really going on. Eric saw tour guides showing off kids glued to computers, but the truth comes out pretty fast because they often don't have enough power, and visitors are told to delete any pictures of this setup. In 2008, Eric took a bunch of photos showing these fake setups. His pictures revealed how the government really keeps a tight grip on what people can see, with most folks there having very little access to computers or the internet. His photos highlighted the difference between how the government wants to appear tech-forward and the real limits on tech and information there. But the North Korean government wasn't happy about Eric sharing these real-deal photos online. They ended up banning him from coming back. There's this one photo that hits hard. It's of a woman pretending to work on a computer that isn't even on. What do you make of that? It shows the gap between what's for show and what's actually happening. 22. Hardship in North Korea. Since the Korean War ended, North Korea has been trying by all means to show the world that they are independent, politically, economically, and militarily. But beneath all that, things are really tough. People there struggle every day just to get by. The government is all about showing off its military power and nuclear weapons, but this focus takes away a lot of resources. Resources that could help improve farming or fix their economy. Instead, they're chopping down forests to make more farmland, but this only leads to more problems like soil erosion, floods, and less food for everyone. This makes the food shortage and the gap between rich and poor even worse. There's also this twist with foreign aid. Back in the day, they got a lot of help from the Soviet Union, but that stopped when they didn't pay back their debts. Then, in the 90s, when China cut back on sending them grain, North Korea got really upset and called them traitors. Losing this outside help made the poverty there even worse, trapping the people in a cycle where it's super hard to get out of poverty and stay connected with the rest of the world. 21. Man eats grass. It's really hard to grasp how serious the hunger in North Korea is until you see the rare photos that get out, despite the government's strict control over the media. There's this leaked photo showing a very thin man in a barren field, picking grass with his bare hands. He's not doing this for farming, he's desperately trying to find something to eat. This sad picture isn't about farming, it's about struggling every day to find food in a place where not having enough to eat is common, except for the rich folks who live really well. Most people are in such bad situations that anyone else might feel lucky just to not be in their place. This man's tough life shows the harsh reality many people face in North Korea, a reality that most of the outside world doesn't see. 20. Portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong Il in North Korea. Pictures of the Kim family leaders are everywhere, not just for decoration, but because they have to be. Every home, office, and public space must have a special spot for portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong Il. These pictures are always put in a noticeable place and kept very clean. Government officials even check regularly to make sure these portraits are treated with extreme care, almost like they're sacred. This widespread practice is not just about keeping things clean, it's also a way to constantly remind people of the leader's presence and tighten their control over what people think and feel. Whether in schools, workplaces, or town squares, these portraits remind everyone of the government's power and the loyalty they're supposed to have toward the Kim family. It makes you wonder, do people respect them that much, or are they just pretending because they're afraid? 19. Broom at Kim Il-sung's statue. In North Korea, there's a big deal made about the Mansu Hill Grand Monument, which has statues of the famous leaders Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong Il. This place is super important for showing respect, and there are strict rules like not taking photos from behind the statues and keeping the area super clean, with heavy penalties for even small mistakes like dropping trash. However, a surprising photo has popped up that's caught everyone off guard, both in North Korea and around the world. It shows a broom just left leaning against the monument, apparently forgotten by a cleaner. This small oversight is shocking given all the strict rules there, and it makes you wonder if things are as perfectly respectful and orderly as they seem. Let's just hope nobody finds out who left the broom there, for their own good. 18. North Korea's gray market. In North Korea, photos that have been secretly shared show that informal markets are a big part of everyday life for many people there. These markets are like lifelines where folks can buy things that are hard to find or not sold in regular stores, like imported gadgets or even basic groceries, all of which come from China and are pretty expensive because of the risks involved in sneaking them into the country. These bustling markets, caught on hidden cameras, show a different side to North Korea's usually strict economy. In these little underground spots, people manage to get both everyday items and some treats that the government doesn't provide. The fact that these markets exist shows how clever and tough the people are, and it really points out the big gaps in what the government's doing. Even with all the rules, these markets are thriving because they're essential for people's survival. They're more than just shopping places. They represent the determination and spirit of people living under a really tough government. 17. 3 generations of punishment. Imagine a rule where if one person does something wrong, it's not just them who get punished, but their kids and even their grandkids too. This is actually happening with the 3 generations of punishment policy. This idea started back in 1950 and was meant to completely cut off the families of those who opposed the government, dragging the whole family into trouble because of one person's actions. This harsh rule does more than punish. It's a way to scare and control people, linking them together in suffering. This isn't something you'd find written down as law, but it's a known rule enforced by the ruling party. It keeps everyone on edge, making sure that fear and following orders are part of family life. While most places have stopped such extreme actions, this scary tradition sticks around there, turning what should be loving family ties into a reason to worry about getting in trouble. 16. Surveillance camera. Watching people in North Korea isn't just about keeping tabs. It's a huge part of life there that's hard to miss. Secretly taken photos show lots of surveillance cameras everywhere, which really shows how far the government's control goes. You can find these cameras everywhere: markets, restaurants, and busy streets. They're mainly there to look out for any trouble, really highlighting how the government wants to keep everything under tight control. In just the last 4 years, they've put up around 100,000 CCTV cameras. They're not just in public areas, but also in workplaces. Placing them at work means they can keep an eye on everyone all the time, preventing people from challenging the rules, and making sure everyone sticks strictly to what they're supposed to do. These cameras are like a constant reminder, watching over everyone and making sure they know they're being watched non-stop. This network of cameras creates a real sense of fear and forces people to stick to the rules very closely, in a place that's known as one of the most controlled societies in the world. 15. Homelessness in North Korea. Even in countries known for their wealth and being well-connected globally, you can still see homeless people, which really shows how widespread the issue is. So, it's not shocking to think that homelessness could exist in North Korea too, despite the country being pretty closed off and the government not talking about such things. This belief got some solid proof from a photo that leaked online. It showed a man and possibly his child sleeping on a park bench, which seemed to be their only shelter. Finding out about homelessness in North Korea is especially surprising because the country usually tries hard to hide any problems from the rest of the world. This photo gives us a glimpse into a really tough issue within North Korea, adding to what we know about this secretive place. It highlights that homelessness is a problem everywhere, even in countries that really try to show they have everything under control. 14. Malnutrition. North Korea has been dealing with tough times in farming and the economy, but it tries to show the world it's doing just fine. However, tourists often mention that they're not allowed to take pictures of the clear signs of hunger among the people there, as the government wants to hide these problems. Some really upsetting photos have come out. One shows a man holding photos of very thin children, their ribs clearly showing through their skin, looking weak and fragile. These kids really show the tough times many are facing in North Korea. Another powerful photo shows a young boy who looks really thin, but he's dressed neatly and wearing a hat with his country's symbol. His look is both sad and proud, showing loyalty and hope even in hard times. These photos really challenge the image North Korea tries to maintain, showing the world a tough reality that the leaders there want to keep hidden. 13. Poor farming. If you want to understand some of the tough situations in North Korea, just take a look at their farming. Secret photos from inside the country show the tough conditions that farmers face. The pictures show dry, cracked ground, and farmers struggling to grow anything with very little water and basic tools. A big problem is that they don't have modern tools or enough fertilizer. Most North Korean farmers use old-fashioned tools and a lot of hard work, which makes farming really tough and not very effective. In some photos, you can see both regular people and soldiers working hard in the fields, using whatever they have. They also don't have good systems for watering the crops, which is a huge problem when there's a drought. This results in very poor crops and adds to the food shortage issues. Plus, they sometimes have to use human waste as fertilizer because they don't have better options, which shows just how hard they have to try to keep their farming going. 12. Soldiers working in fields in North Korea. Soldiers often do regular jobs along with their military duties. Photos that have sneaked out of the country show soldiers working in fields and on construction sites, not just guarding the country. They help with planting and picking crops, especially when it's super busy during the farming season. This is really important because the country has ongoing issues with not having enough food. These soldiers are also seen working on building roads and structures. These photos reveal how deeply the military is woven into everyday life there, and they're always kept busy with tough tasks, closely watched to make sure they do everything just right. In cities, you can spot soldiers cleaning streets and fixing things like benches and lights, making their presence felt everywhere. This really shows how the government keeps a tight grip on everything and everyone, using the military for all sorts of work, not just fighting. 11. Shanty house. If you think North Korea is just about big military shows and fancy statues, there's a lot more going on that you don't usually see. Photos that have been smuggled out show a much tougher side of life: shanty towns. These are rough neighborhoods made from whatever people can find, like wood, metal sheets, and plastic covers. They're often hidden on the edges of cities or out in the countryside, far from the seeming wealth of places like Pyongyang. These photos show how tough life is there. People live without basic things like running water, electricity, or proper toilets. They squeeze into small, badly furnished places and struggle every day. Inside their homes, it's pretty bare. A few old chairs, beds made from whatever's around, and not much else. It really shows how hard things are for many people there. Living in these shanty towns isn't just uncomfortable, it's risky. With no clean water and bad sanitation, people can easily get sick. The homes are weakly built too, so they're not safe from bad weather. This side of North Korea is hidden from the rest of the world, and it's a sharp contrast to the image the country tries to show off. 10. Pleasure Squad. Ever thought you'd heard all the dark secrets about North Korea? There allegedly is something even more hidden called the Pleasure Squad, or Kipumjo. This group, made up of about 2,000 women, is there to entertain and sometimes provide more personal services to the country's top leaders and special guests. Not many people know about this as it's super secretive, and what little we do know comes from people who've left the country and a few scattered media reports. These squads were started back when Kim Il-sung was in charge, and they've continued under Kim Jong Il and now Kim Jong Un. The women in these squads are talented in singing, dancing, and even giving massages. They are usually picked when they're teenagers based on how they look and their loyalty, and they have to go through intense training. They're also sworn to keep everything a secret. Every once in a while, a photo or a piece of information about these squads slips past North Korea's tight control on information, giving the rest of the world a tiny peek into what's going on. But the government keeps such a tight lid on things that it's hard to really know the full story. This whole situation is a big contrast to the polished image North Korea tries to show the world. 9. Secret female soldier. Despite being famously secretive, North Korea has a huge military force, with over 7 million members. But it's important to know that a lot of these people didn't choose to be there. The government makes them join, so they really don't have a choice about being in the military. Within this massive military, there's a less-known group, a secret female army. But don't get it wrong, they're not like regular soldiers. These women have a special role where they perform at official events. You might see them carrying big swords, known as katanas, and marching in really precise formations. Their main job is to entertain and impress people at these events, including the country's leaders. It's pretty interesting how North Korea combines this kind of show with their military presence in such a unique way, isn't it? 8. Old radios. In North Korea, old-style radios are more than just relics. They're a key part of how the government controls information. The radios that people have in their homes can only pick up government stations. This means they can't tune into any foreign broadcasts or anything not approved by the leaders. This is a deliberate move to make sure everyone only hears what the government wants them to hear, blocking out different views from around the world and keeping people from questioning the rules. These radios are common in both homes and workplaces. Even with all the new technology around, these old radios are still important for spreading the government's messages. They play a mix of news, cultural programs, and stuff that pushes the government's ideas, aiming to make people stay loyal. Also, they keep tabs on what you're listening to, and messing with your radio to try to catch other channels can get you in serious trouble. This constant watching creates a lot of fear and makes people stick to the rules, keeping everyone tightly under the government's control. 7. Electric fences. If you think there's a limit to how much a government can restrict its people, here's something that might surprise you. There's a photo showing the really heavily guarded border between China and North Korea. In the picture, you can see a long fence with barbed wire and electricity running through it, right along the North Korean coast. Its job? To make sure no one can get in or out without permission. If someone even tries to touch this fence, they're in for some serious trouble right away. This fence makes it nearly impossible for anyone to escape by sea. If someone somehow manages to get past this electrified barrier, they still have to deal with the guards who are always watching and ready to stop anyone trying to escape. Even though it's incredibly dangerous, some people have still tried, and a few have even succeeded in getting out, willing to risk it all for the chance to be free. This just shows the extreme lengths to which some are driven in their desire to escape control. 6. Empty classrooms. Here's something that shows just how much control is exerted in North Korea. Leaked pictures from inside its schools. These images show classrooms that are completely empty. Even though they are super clean and everything is neatly in place, no one is there. This cleanliness and order are part of how the government likes to keep things under tight control. But the fact that these classrooms are empty really makes you think. It suggests that real practical learning isn't happening much. Instead, there's a lot of focus on teaching government ideas. What's also striking in these pictures is how old and simple everything looks. The desks are old, and there aren't many resources for learning, which shows that not much money is being put into the schools. This extreme cleanliness is meant to impress anyone who looks, showing how disciplined and efficient they are. But with no students around, it actually highlights a big gap between what the government wants to show and the tough reality. Often, in places like rural areas, children are taken out of school to work, especially in the fields. This shows that their need for education is being overshadowed by the need for their labor. 5. Underground subway system. North Korea tries to show off by claiming the Pyongyang Metro is one of the deepest subways in the world, and it also serves as a bomb shelter. However, the pictures that some daring people have secretly taken tell a different story. The subway stations look fancy with big chandeliers, colorful mosaics, and statues of famous leaders. But this fancy stuff doesn't match what the subway is actually for. It's built to withstand military attacks, and although it looks grand, it's meant for serious protection during wars. The trains are old, from the time when the Soviet Union was around, and they're quite worn out. This shows how much North Korea struggles to update its old subway system. Taking photos there is usually not allowed, and tourists are closely watched to make sure they only see what the government wants them to see. So these secret photos are special because they give us a glimpse into the parts of the subway that are meant to be practical, not just for show. They help us see both the side that North Korea wants to impress the world with, and the real, more practical side of how the subway is used. 4. Kim Jong Il Festival. Ever wondered about forced celebrations? In North Korea, they take this concept to a whole new level with mandatory events to honor past leaders. Imagine having to go to big public events, like how we do for Christmas or New Year's, but not by choice. Today, let's talk about the Kim Jong Il Festival, which is all about celebrating the former leader, Kim Jong Il. The idea of the festival might sound interesting as it's designed to honor Kim Jong Il's legacy. But photos from the event tell a different story. They show people being pushed to gather at monuments for Kim Jong Il, and it looks more like they're being forced than actually wanting to celebrate. In North Korea, past leaders are almost worshipped, and their memories are celebrated with a lot of fanfare. But what's the point of a celebration if people are made to participate? It's a tough question, especially when you see how much control there is over the lives of people there. It really makes you think about the nature of these forced festivities. 3. Shopping mall for the elite. Think you've seen big gaps between rich and poor? Here's something even more extreme. A photo that got out of North Korea shows a scene that really sums up inequality. It's a picture of a woman, dressed very fancily, pushing a shopping cart full of groceries. What's weird about this picture? The mall she's in is completely empty. You might wonder why a shopping mall would be so deserted. It's not because people don't want to shop or there's nothing to buy. It's because this mall is only for the very rich or powerful. Ordinary folks can't even go in. It's only for high-ranking people and their friends. This situation is a clear example of serious class differences. What better way to see the divide between classes than a luxury mall where only a few can shop? It's a really vivid example of how far apart people can be in terms of social status and privilege. 2. Child labor. North Korea is really tightening its control over the people, and shockingly, this includes even kids. Leaks have shown upsetting pictures of children working hard under the hot sun. These kids, who should be in school learning, are instead stuck doing tough physical work. It's a sad and ironic situation, especially because North Korea often says how much it values education. In these pictures, you can see a soldier watching over the children, which really shows the government's role in this harsh treatment. Instead of helping and protecting its young people, the government is making them work like this, which makes you wonder about their future. What can you expect from a government that cares more about control than the well-being of its kids? It's a situation that really makes you think about the state of human rights in such a closed-off country. 1. Forced labor camps. Just when you think North Korea can't surprise you anymore, there's more. Behind the scenes of strict government control, there are forced labor camps with really harsh conditions. A leaked photo reveals just how tough it is. It shows two women working non-stop, watched closely by a military officer, in what looks like never-ending hard labor. This photo is chilling because it shows that this isn't just a one-time thing. North Korea has many of these camps where lots of people are made to work under terrible conditions. This image really brings to light the severe human rights issues that are happening there. It's heartbreaking to think about how many have died in these camps, with no sign of things getting better. And while North Korea isn't the only place with these issues, countries like China and Russia have been called out for similar things. It reminds us of the ongoing fight against such cruel practices. From the outside, all we can do is hope for change and think about the people stuck in these awful situations.